Today we'll explore loggregation in Coralogix. Loggregation is a machine learning algorithm that will cluster together similar logs. So when you have lots and lots of logs that are covering lots and lots of different cases, loggregation will cluster all those similar logs together into a single view so you can look at the variance of values, the normal expected flow, and much, much more. We'll begin with a use case so we can see why loggregation is so powerful. Then we'll look at the available features in the Loggregation UI. And finally, we'll look at some limitations of the platform. So if you do see anything you don't expect, you'll have your questions answered in this video and you'll know your next steps for how to remedy them. So first and foremost, we have a logging screen here. We have 24 hours of logs of 7.66 million logs. We have lots of different data going on here. A really common case is just to focus on the error logs or the critical logs, or both. In this case, you can see here that we've got a nice flat relatively consistent background hum, except here where there was a release by the looks of things and then a sudden increase in logs. So what we can do is we can zoom in on this part of the timeline here and we can see that we still have 20,000 logs to get through. This is very, very difficult to understand what's happening, and this is where loggregation is so powerful, because while we have 20,000 logs, we only have 29 templates. What this means is that rather than sifting through all those logs and coming up with all these clever queries, with one click you move over to the loggregation view in templates and you can see all of your data in a completely different and unique way. The first thing I want to show you in the UI is this occurrences block here. So anything green here can be clicked on. When you select this, it will show you the normal flow of your data. So here is the typical, in the grey here, the typical normal amount that one would expect. This is a profile of your data that the system has worked out over time. And then you can see that there's these random spikes every now and then, but nothing compared to this huge spike right here. So something interesting happened in this time frame. What we can then do is we can open up the log and we can explore these values. Now it's important to note one key thing. These may look like the values of the logs, but they're just placeholders. All of these things are variables. So for example, if I select on the error message here, I can see that the true thing is that 4,193 of them have this value. This is the value you can see here, the most common value. But there are also 2,000 that contain this error message, 640 that contain this error message. This is like a cross-cutting variable. It shows you all of the variants across all of the logs. Likewise, you can select values that have single things. For example, you can see here that's 2B and 2A. So you can see that, for example, with the availability zone, you can see where logs are being split, and this might give you an idea about which availability zone is doing more work than another. So this isn't just about debugging, it's about optimization, it's about good engineering practice as well. You'll also notice that down here we have a message, and in the message you'll see things that are in white and things that are in green. If they're in green, what this means is that loggregation has identified them as a variable within your message. So you can see here, for example, we have a request ID. Every request has its own unique ID, as one might expect. But for session IDs, you can see that different logs are being generated by different sessions. So for this given session ID right here, there are 374. That means probably a long, very busy session. But this, not as much activity. So something interesting there, and if you can track the session IDs to user behavior, this might give you some indication as to the cause of the errors. So you can see here that the message has been broken down into constants and variables. This is one of the things that loggregation does really, really well. Now over here you'll see this first seen column. This tells you the first time that Coralogix saw this error. So you can see here that the first time this appeared was actually the 10th of November 2022. This is last year, this is a few months ago. This is an old error that suddenly spiked when there's been a release. You can know there's been a release because there's a tag right here that shows version 1.20. So this is super, super powerful. It means that you can correlate your releases, your alarms, your metrics, everything together. But what's really important here to note is that this is an older error, but it's suddenly spiked. So maybe this changes your priorities a little bit. Maybe this changes how you view the data. Likewise, if you're primarily interested in this template, clicking this button here will go to the logs, and it will show you the actual individual values that support this log. This is super powerful because what it means is that you can jump from the logs to the template, find the most common template, the thing that accounts for most of your errors, and then jump straight back to the logs again. So we just turned our 21,000 data set into a 7,000 data set in a couple of clicks. It's a really, really fast, really great way of triaging and prioritizing how you assess your errors. So we've looked at some of the features that are available in the UI and in the platform. Really, really powerful, super interesting. Now we're going to look at some of the limitations that exist in the platform. The first one I'm going to show you is this limitation right here. You'll see this quite commonly. It's where the values are grayed out, or you see it's green, but it's very, very faint, and it can't be clicked on. What this means is that the logs that support this template are actually held in the archive. And this archive is your S3 bucket, and they're held over in your own cloud account. If logs are held in the archive, you can't explore them via this UI. You can still look at the occurrences tab and look at the normal flow, but you can't look at the actual individual fields themselves. So if you see that they're in a muted green color, either you can move from your archive back to your frequent search, or you can ingest new data, and that'll hopefully change that back to a green like this that can be clicked on. So that just means that your data is in the archive. Another sort of key point to highlight as well is that for your templates, the templates need to have a message field at the root of the document. So you can see right here, this has the message field. Loggregation works against this message field. If there's no text field that it can detect at the root of the document, then it's not going to work. It's not going to pick it up. So if you want to use loggregation, you need to make sure that you have the message field right at the root of the document. Another example is where you see unclassified logs. So unclassified logs occur for a number of different reasons. And you'll see them right at the top here. You can actually click this button right here, and it will show whether there are any unclassified logs. There aren't in this system, but you'll see them right at the top. They're super obvious. You can't miss them. So unclassified logs happen for a number of reasons. So firstly, we have this concept of a branch in Coralogix. Now, a branch is a combination of application, subsystem, and severity. So a combination, so for example, the application default, the subsystem front end, and the severity of verbose, for example. Now, this is a branch. Per one of these combinations, per one of these branches, you are permitted 150 templates. Now, this is only a soft limit. So if you go into your log template and you can see that you have unclassified logs, you can see the reason for that. Once you can view the reason for that, if you see that it's because you breached your template limit of 150, you can just get in contact with customer support right here using this button. And we can increase that soft limit for you if you need to. But if you are generating that many, you may want to consider investigating the root cause of that, because that is a lot of templates. It's a very, very high number to reach, and you might have lots of different logs, and you might get better results analyzing in a different way, using different features of the Coralogix platform. Another example is when you have too many branches in the first place. So, for example, this is most common when people have put numerical values in a subsystem or application. So they end up indexing, and they end up with some sort of dynamic subsystem or application generation. And what this means is you end up with lots and lots and lots of branches, thousands and thousands of branches. And that means that Coralogix will stop performing loggregation analysis on all of those branches just because you have so many of them. Most commonly, this is an error. In almost all the cases that we debug with customers, this is most likely an error. So if you are seeing this, talk to Coralogix customer support, and they can no doubt identify the branches that can be removed and maybe help you change your code as well, so that these numerical values are removed and you're using the values more sparingly, and that's going to mean that you can use the platform more effectively. Finally, there is one other limit to the loggregation values. So you can see here that this is a relatively short message. Now, there is a limit to how long this message can be, and if you exceed this limit, we will not perform loggregation analysis on it. The limit is either 500 words, a word being defined as a token delimited by a space, or 10,000 characters. So if you have a message that's above this, and by the way, that is enormous, that's a huge log, it sometimes does happen. But if that does happen, you'll see an unclassified log in the templates UI. You'll be able to view the cause, and the cause will be text too long. Again, you can work with Coralogix. The customer support are there to help you break down your message into something more usable. But if you do have a message that's that long, Loggregation will not be able to perform analyses on it. And it's really, really important to keep on top of that. So those are just some of the common limitations that one finds with Loggregation. So today we've explored why Loggregation is so powerful, because it turns massive data sets into small numbers of templates. We've gone through a simple troubleshooting journey where we've highlighted error logs, looked at the templates, and pulled some cross-cutting insights from those templates. We've looked at the available features in the Loggregation UI, so everything from viewing the flow of logs, seeing when the template was first seen, how to go back and query the logs for a given template, how to look at the individual variants and values, and such and so on. And also the ratio and things like that, so you can see which percentage of logs represent the total amount of the logs that you received in the time period that you've queried. So this is just a simple run through, but super powerful, and hopefully this gives you a really great start to the loggregation journey in Coralogix. Loggregation is a fantastic feature, and once it becomes part of your normal engineering practice, it's a really, really powerful way of speeding up your troubleshooting and also enriching your engineering experience with that machine learning capabilities that are really giving companies the edge in 2023.